Hey, 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 hey. Welcome to Ladyz Talk on K84 Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Christine, and today we are going to get into some fun topics, ladies. And for those of you who are new here, Ladyz Talk is a place for everyday American, Midwest, Southern women to have a voice. All perspectives, beliefs, convictions are respected. In today's topic, you might be hearing more he, her, husband, wife, his, but this is a place for all types of couples, so please feel welcomed. But the only rule here is that we gotta have some fun and show some respect. So, hey boss, can you roll that intro? Ladyz Talk on K84 Podcast.
It's official.
On K84 Podcast. All right, today we're gonna introduce our regular scheduled panelists. Alex in the corner. Hey, hey.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Jasmine. Welcome back. We missed you last week.
Hey.
Marissa.
Hey, y'all.
And we have our three guests this week. Nikki.
Hey, how y'all doing?
And we got Kitty.
Hi, how you doing?
And Gabby.
Hey.
All right, ladies, guests, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves?
It's your girl, Nikki. I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I like to do a little bit of fashion and also home decor.
Nice. I could see the fashion. I'm digging it. What about you, Kitty?
I am Kitty, and I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I have mostly grown-up kids. 7 kids.
Oh, okay. And what about you, Gabby?
Hey, I'm Gabby. I work in social media marketing and graphic design, and I am an event caterer.
Oh, nice. Welcome.
Thank you.
So today's episode, the discussion will be on submission in 50-50 relationships. Ooh. But before we get started, we always want to start each episode with a fun icebreaker. So today we want to know if you could be on any TV show, what would it be and why? Let's start with you, Alex.
So mine would be Naked and Afraid.
Why?
I like to be naked. I, for real, really do. But also, I just feel like I could do it. Like, I feel like I really like to test myself, right? Like, push myself to the limits, like, internally. And I think that's, like, a show that you could, you can do that. So.
Okay. I could picture you all sunburned, trying to start a fire,
running around,
shivering in the rain. I could picture it. All right. What about you, Kitty?
Well, I would probably be Law and Order SVU, I would say, because I think that, I don't know, I've always liked the ability to help kids and, just solve crimes.
So noble.
Yeah.
I love it.
Plus, I think that I would be BFFs with Olivia Benson.
Oh, nice. I like it. Marissa.
That's a hard question. I don't watch a lot of TV, but they're like the dating shows and stuff. I know I'm married, but like I think my real life would have actually been like a dating show for a few years there. I was like the Bachelorette, like talking to all these people trying to find the one worthy of me. So
where's Amanda?
I probably would have done that actually in my single days.
I love that. So I would probably say Suits, because like my alter ego is I'm a closer, you know what I'm saying? Deep down.
That's what I was going to say.
Oh my gosh, you're my people. Yeah, I think, I'm the female version of Harvey in my like fake life, in my dreams. Maybe in real life. We could test that. Well, why were you going to say it?
literally the same thing, but I was torn between Suits and House. Do you remember House?
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, that's a good show.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't think there's anything to explain.
Yeah. No, seriously. And if you have never watched Suits or House, you got some binge-worthy TV for you right there. Okay. So, okay, what about you?
It probably would be like Wildin' Out or something. That could be super goofy and fun. You know what I'm saying? So yeah,
I like Goofy.
It's me. Okay, so I've always wanted to be on Survivor. As somebody who's watched like 20 seasons, I mean, they have like 80 seasons, so I just feel like strategy-wise, I feel like I could win. Maybe not like win number one, but at least top three. I could do it. I feel like I could do it.
See, you know what? You just like inspired me to change my answer to Big Brother.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, put me in, coach. Seriously. Okay, getting to today's topic. Submission and 50-50 relationships. So, at what point of history, when, where, what, how did there become this division among men and women and the roles that they play? I feel like you could answer, Marissa.
I have some notes. My background, I don't know if y'all know, like I used to be a minister and a missionary, so I have a lot of religious background. So my perspective today is biblical based. But what I've been taught, the way I was raised to believe, was in the beginning, God made male and female, and we were actually created equal. But it was after we messed up and sin came into the world that it wasn't God's plan for that division and that hierarchy and ruling over each other. But because we messed up, that's the consequence of sin, and that's the devil's plan for our life. That wasn't God's plan. So, because when you think about it, he said, rule and reign and take care of the earth together. And we were made in his likeness, in his same image. And then after the fall is when he said, man will rule over woman. That wasn't his plan. That was the consequence.
Interesting.
So that's when I think inequality came into the picture.
So, any other thought? Like, I mean, I feel like that's a little deep. I mean, are there any other thoughts on
I
when
have a much
inequality?
less deep thought.
Okay.
I feel like women were stuck at home, taking care of the children and taking care of the home, because when men were out fighting wars, they ain't fighting wars no more. Some of them. But you know what? Women are fighting wars too. So I really don't believe in the, like, I don't want to say traditional, because I don't know if that's the right word to use for it, but I don't believe in the gender roles and the women should be submissive to man because man is man. Like, we still equal over here. You're not fighting a war. I'm not taking care of this house by myself.
Does it go back to like?
I think it was back in the like 1930s, and then things started to shift, right? Like females got into the workforce. You kind of seen it in like the 50s, the 60s, right? And then things started to shift. If you're asking like historical, I mean, I don't even know that that's correct. I'm just saying from my own point of view, you know, like women started to work and not stay at home and only have kids, and it wasn't like a one income household, right? So females started to like shift that like very rigid gender role that we used to see, and now we don't.
So that very rigid gender role, I mean, in the span of like humanity, that was it. Like,
right,
men went out and got the food, they built the houses, they were physical, you know, out there making it happen, right? And then women were more in the house, taking care of the house, raising the children, making sure everyone was fed and clothed, right? So it was maybe the Industrial Revolution and even all the men going away to war where women had to like step it up. Right. So why do we think it didn't change back to what it used to be as all the men came home from war all of a sudden in this time, this day and age, like this particular last generation ahead of us?
I don't know. For me, I'm talking for like the now. You know what I'm saying? I feel like a lot of women nowadays, even in the urban community, most definitely, you're single parents. You understand what I'm saying? So with that being said, you know, you have the woman playing both roles. She has to have that masculine energy just as well as that feminine. So, you know what I'm saying? It's a combination of it all. You know what I'm saying? And you have a lot of men out here, they just don't step up. You know what I'm saying? They procreate and they on to the next. So, it's...
So here's the question, right?
Yeah.
In that example, right? Let's say he don't step up. Maybe he's in and out, right? Maybe he just coming in to drop something off real quick. You bugging me. But when he is there, he still expects you to submit.
I'm very dominant female, so...
Ooh, I think a lot of us are.
You got to give me something to submit to.
There you go.
What am I
Gotta
submitting
give
to?
me something to submit to.
That's
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think that's it right there.
Big
all right.
time.
So what is worth submitting to? What does that look like?
Well, of course, taking care of home, you know, making sure I'm straight all the way around the board, not just, you know, money-wise. We're going to say mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, because all of that is a package deal in relationships, I feel. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
And out of 10 men, how many of them bring that package to the table?
shit, probably like 2 of them.
2? You generous. You generous.
I was gonna say 0. I think a lot of men in this day and age expect submissive women and expect a traditional woman while bringing nothing traditional to the table. Because if we're talking about traditional women and traditional relationships, men went out, they worked, they provided. And I think as soon as you bring up the word provide to men, it's like the boogeyman. Woo, they're scared.
You just want money.
You just want my money. Well, I mean, you guess what? There's no such thing as 50-50 because as a woman, you're always going to be doing more, whether that's cooking, whether that's cleaning, emotional labor.
The emotional load is
That's 100% by itself.
Right.
So I just think that, like, people are just not realistic. It's like, you want me to be this woman that brings everything to you while you have nothing. Barely a job. No brain.
I mean, okay. So
You sound jaded, but go ahead.
I was going to say, I was going to redirect the conversation just a wee bit and kind of, so we were talking about 50-50 and being submissive in a relationship, and I feel like what we're talking about the last few minutes is not how I would describe a relationship, like a committed relationship. So I think from the perspective of myself, like the question that's going off in my head is, what does being submissive even mean? Because there are some instances where I am going to be submissive to my husband.
Right.
And there's some instances where I'm not. And what good looks like for me is probably not what good looks like for you, right? So what does submissive even mean? Is it, okay, you're in a relationship with your partner, whatever they say goes in whatever category? Or, like, what does that mean?
I think, can I speak? I think the whole idea, at least in the American culture, came in from the biblical perspective, which is Ephesians 5, where it says, wives, submit to your husbands. And a lot of people have taken that and been, like, using it as an excuse to abuse wives and control wives and dominate them. But I think the church and people in general with religion have forgot to see the verses right before and after it, like submit yourselves one to another.
That's
And
right.
husbands, love your wives and lay down your life for her. And
That's
so
right.
I think submission means serving one another, not just one-sided, and loving and deferring to each other. Like when something's more important to you, you surrender to the other person, and it isn't based on your gender. It's just whatever you're good at and your gifting. So you take turns,
Right.
compromise.
And
I
it
would
could be compromise. Like
Yeah.
submission could be, to me, sometimes it means compromise. Like where am I willing to like compromise certain things, right? And submission is across a lot of categories. Like we talked about earlier, there's a lot of different ways you could perceive that word, especially nowadays, I think.
What about you, Kitty? What's your view on what is submission?
I like what you had to say because that's exactly how I would view submission too. We aren't just I would defer to him in the end for his final decision, but we have a mutual give and take. We have, I can really, stand up for myself and be like, absolutely not, you're in the wrong. And then he can say the same back to me, and we can go back and forth, and eventually we will come to an agreement, and it is 50-50. I mean, well, I don't know, 100 and 100. I think is more the way that it is, because you're both putting everything out there, and you know, yeah, my story on submission is kind of complicated, so it's
We want to hear it.
Yeah.
All the gritty details.
Yeah, let's hear.
okay. Well, when I was a little girl, my parents were it was in the 80s, and my parents were very much into you will be the perfect child, you will, obey me in everything, and any adult that says this is this, then you just instantly obey. You never question. So I was like a great kid, which also opened the door to dirty old people who took advantage of that innocence and decided that, she's easy prey because she's always going to be the good girl who says, okay, whatever. So anyhow, I got that scenario of a victimized child, and then you put me into the culture of religion. When I was 13 years old, we entered a religious culture, and it was very plain, very Anabaptist, if you will. And there was a lot of patriarchy. There's a lot of the man is the head of the home, and a lot of the preacher is, or the bishop or whatever, he is the head over everybody's home. And I remember being sat down and being told, you can never look a man in the eye. You can't, all the things that he'll think he has right over you if you look him in the eye, and you're already pretty, so you're going to be a stumbling block. So that already broken person who I was, who was already abused, already very, very much like the the dictionary definition of submission, which is like a little sheep and just, okay, yes, sir. That's who I was. And then he brought me into this religious culture where it wasn't just my father anymore. It was the church and then the men of the church. And even though nothing physically bad happened, I really feel like that spiritual abuse was a lot worse than any of the physical abuse that I had dealt with, because I knew that the physical abuse and the sexual abuse was evil. But what do you do when you get into the church, and these are supposed to be godly people and loving and nurturing and bringing you closer to God, and they're the ones who are traumatizing you more, all under the banner of submission. And so that became like a scary word. I remember I would just pray, Lord, give me a meek and quiet spirit. It's of great value. Just break me. I have too much energy. I'm too boisterous. I'm too much. Everybody tells me I'm too much. Break me. And so that I could be that perfect girl, so that when I got married, my man would have just the right girl. And I remember still being not quite broken enough, not quite submissive enough, and I still struggled with my flesh. And I knew that this guy who I'd been in love with since I was 16, he was going to come calling. I had moved from Wisconsin to Pennsylvania, and he was coming out, and we were going to start dating. And then we got engaged, but in my home it was like, do not talk to your boyfriend about anything that happens after marriage, because you have to wait till you're married so you could do that. So I was like uber oppressed and suppressed. And so it was like I couldn't talk about how many children we were going to have. I couldn't talk about child training. Everything had to be whatever it was he decided. Thank the Lord I got a good man. Because when we finally got married, or finally got engaged, I remember thinking, oh, he'll be so good for me, because I need to have a strong man in my life who can lead me and protect me and guide me, and all the stuff. And whenever we did get married, the first couple weeks, I was like, babe, just tell me what you want me to do. He's like, I am not your father. You are a grown woman. You get up there and you figure out what it is supposed to do. And I was like, I don't know what to do, because nobody told me how to be a grown-up. Nobody told me. I had a mom who was like, no, this is how I need things to be done. And, everything was just very controlled for me. And suddenly I had to grow up. And I was 20 years old, and I had no clue what in the world I was doing. And he was like, I'm standing out. You're going to have to figure this out, because I am not your daddy. So that was a really rough road. But he taught me through, encouragement and whatever, how to stand up for myself and how to have an opinion and how to, be a woman of my own right, and how we would make decisions together, and we would honor each other. But then when it came to big stuff, it was like, he would say to me, this is what I want to do. What are your thoughts? And then we would make the decision together, or I would just say, this is my thought, but obviously whatever it is you want to decide. And it ended up being a beautiful thing. But there is one story. Am I talking too much? There is one story that I would like to share that was pretty pivotal in my journey into this whole thing, figuring out how submission actually works. And my husband, he's a dear man, but sometimes it just frustrated me. You know how women think things through one way and men will come from a different perspective, and you'll look at them and go, what? Well, my husband decided that there was just some talk about, water safety and whatever, and what could be in our water. And so he asked me to purify all of our water, even if we were going to boil it. And I was like, I am not that paranoid. And so I was really struggling with the whole thing of, do I do this? Do I not? And so one day I was being lazy and I didn't get to making supper in time, and he was going to be coming home from work, and I was like, okay, I got to hurry up and get supper on. And I went to turn the regular water on because I was like, Lord knows this stupid water purifier is like tiny little drizzle, and you have to sit there and you're like waiting for hours and to get this water filled up in your pan because I'm going to boil it. And I thought it was stupid. But still, small voice in me is like, you really should be using the water purifier. And I was like, I am not going to use that dumb water purifier. And I was like having the talk with the Lord. I was like, I do not care. I do not care. It's stupid. I think he's stupid for deciding this. The big bad guy's going to come put some nasty water or something nasty in our water. And I was mad. I was just really mad. And I had already filled up the water. And all of a sudden it was like, I could make it take longer. Because I was thinking to myself, besides, I'm in a hurry, so I can make it take longer. And I was like, oh, Lord, I know you can do this. And I got kind of a little bit like, ugh. So I dumped the water out, and I stomped my foot like a little child, because I guarantee I did not have the opportunity when I was actually 16. So I was acting like 25, 30 years old. I was acting like a 16-year-old child, spoiled brat. So I stomped my foot, and I was like, fine, whatever. And so I flipped the thing on, and I kid you not, about the time that I was crossing my arms and it was being like, oh, this is going to take forever, all of a sudden it starts overflowing. And I was like, that is not possible. That is scientifically not possible. But okay, Lord, okay. So I put it on, and I was like, you know what? My husband probably does have a point. Maybe I should have just submitted to him, because this is something important to him. It's not something stupid. It's stupid to me. But anyhow, it turns out that supper went out really, really fast, and he comes home and he's like, babe, he says, we have company coming. Is it okay? These people have stopped alongside the road and they need some supper. All right, I'd like to give them supper. Do you have enough food for them? Can I invite them in? And I'm like, yeah. And everything went so smooth and so perfect. And I think that if I would have just stomped my foot and acted like a child and not done what I knew was meaningful to him, I think things would have gone a lot worse. So
thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot to unpack.
That's a lot of childhood trauma. I'm sorry that all happened to you. Like, the fact that you can look back now and say, like, wow, I'm glad I came out of that. Like, that's a huge story to tell.
Thank God for therapy.
Yes. Yeah. I have a similar situation where I got in a marriage that was abusive, and the church was telling me, you have to stay. Like, because you're supposed to submit to your husband, you're supposed to pray for him and keep allowing this. And, like, he would ground my child for a week. He'd have to stay in his room for a week because he jumped on the bed once. And it was just ridiculous. And I was scared of him. And it was like, if I stood up to him, then I wasn't in my place. And when I told the church, listen, he's drinking all day, he's pushing me around, the pastor actually told me, well, you have to submit to your husband. You should just pray for him. And I was like, oh, heck no. Like, I don't think that that's the way this is supposed to be interpreted. Like, he's supposed to take care of us and provide for us. That's what husbands and men in the relationship are supposed to do, and this wasn't him and his role, so at that point I didn't have to surrender to that. So
it's almost like, okay, if you're hearing the word submission, red flag,
Right.
because it seems to be weaponized.
it is. It's terrible.
And that's why it's being demonized. But I feel like what you were explaining, Kitty, was not necessarily you submitting to your husband. You care about him and you respect him and his feelings and his opinions, and you wanted to do the right thing by your relationship and your partner.
Right.
That's healthy.
It was something doable that you could have like compromised
Yes.
on. Like,
Yes.
yeah, I can do the water thing, even though I don't like it. Like, I'm gonna do it, right?
Yeah.
But to me, like submitting, we're using it in a different context, right? Like, submitting is not that. That's compromising. That's caring about your spouse and like doing something for them, even though I don't agree 100%, right? Submitting to me, like you said, is weaponized. It's like something in that situation where like you submit, like you surrender, you do what you say you're told to do, and that's it.
Obey.
Right?
People translate it to mean obey.
Right, and I
Unconditionally.
think this
wrong.
is a different context nowadays.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good segue, because one of my questions is submission about obedience, or is it a form of trust and respect and love, or is it just about obedience? Because I could see the water, especially with your upbringing, in church. You're like, it wasn't about compromising, it was about obedience. Like, I'm not going to do what I know that I was told to do. Like, so that there is that. And I mean, you don't even have to grow up in church to have that that feeling with your man. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't really want to, babe. But you're having that internal conversation, right? And you're like, yeah, like, so stupid.
But you also have that conversation with other people you care about. I do, right? So I don't know that it's just like in any male-female relationship. I mean, I have that conversation with people I care about too. Like, I don't really want to do that, right?
So is submission a form of compromise? Is it a form of trust?
I believe it is. In my relationship, it is. I mean, I believe that it is a form of compromise.
In a healthy relationship.
In a healthy relationship, absolutely. And that's what we should probably, say. Like, in a healthy relationship, 100%.
But compromise is it's both ways to me. And I don't think two people can be submissive. There's submission, and then there's compromise, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know any
I
man
feel like
that
you're
wants
thinking
to
of
submit.
you're thinking of the word as if it's leadership. Like, only one of us can be the leader, or the head of the household.
Well,
But, like,
can only one of you be the head of the household?
I don't think there is a head of the household. Like, I think that's mistranslated as well. Like, I think that's a whole other thing. But like,
Well, no, I want to hear it, because
Okay, I'll get out my notes. When that verse in the Bible, Ephesians 5, talks about man being the head of the household, that word head actually wasn't leader. The original language was source, like the head of a river. So it was actually husbands are the head of, like, the source of your wife, the one Adam, like Eve came from Adam, your equal, your partners, you provide for her, you take care of her, nurture her. And people have taken that to mean like, nope, I'm the leader, you do what I say,
boss.
I'm the boss. Yeah, and that wasn't the original way it was supposed to come across.
That is actually amazing.
Yeah, if we both mutually respect and understand and love and serve one another, we don't need a leader.
You know how many men would roll their eyes right now?
I know.
Like,
Well, they can
But
keep
like,
on
can they
rolling
put
'em.
themselves in our shoes? Like, it's unfair of them to expect us to obey them unconditionally, and they lead us in all things, and they wouldn't do the same for us. So like, we have to.
and like
balance.
Gabby said, we putting in 100 all day, all night. A lot of times they're not.
I don't know where that sense of entitlement came from. I don't know if that's like hardwired into men. I don't know if that's the way that you're raised.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know where that necessarily came from.
Well, I think historically, women were groomed, and I know like this conversation is open to all types of partnerships, but I think historically, women are groomed to be quiet, to be kind, smile, don't
You're
be
too loud,
aggressive, don't
yeah.
be too loud, don't be too much. So like I think that's where it comes from, because men are groomed the opposite. You should be loud, you should be strong, you should be heard, and all of these bullish things. So that's where I think it comes from. They're groomed to be that way, and then when a woman shows up that way, it's like off-putting. Or it's like, you shouldn't be that way, or you shouldn't have such strong opinions, or be so loud, or be so aggressive. Why are you so masculine?
Nikki, you have mentioned like a totally separate culture, right? And that single mom era, and it's exact opposite of what you might traditionally be told to do. So is that a green light that if you a single mom, you don't need to submit to anybody? There is no, and again, it's the